Welcome to Front and Center, from political battlefields to cooperative playing fields. Hello, I'm Michael Maxsenti. Today, my partner, Steve Bhaerman, and I want to have an update conversation about so many things that are going on. We thought we were going to be able to resume our podcast conversations on a regular basis, but as we've been focusing on so many immediate needs and important projects that we're both working on, we've not been able to get regular. We apologize for that. Hope you will keep following us, and obviously your sharing of our work with others and any sponsorship you can help us with, that would be appreciated. What we're focused on is the adjacent possible next step that we must accomplish so we can change the course of our nation and move forward to that more beautiful and just worlds our hearts know is possible. Steve, so let's get started.
Well, hello, Michael, and I couldn't help but notice that you've draped yourself on the flag. Who would have said that? I know you're not a scoundrel, but they say that scoundrels will drape themselves on the flag. So maybe let's begin with something obvious. The jacket that you're wearing. Obviously, it's not a straight jacket, nor is it a gay jacket. So tell me more.
Well, one of our, we have a whole host of great volunteers, but one in particular, one of our super volunteers who wears this regularly at some of our rallies and stuff. We were doing a peace march, peace rally up in Los Angeles at the Federal Building in Westwood, right there. And so anyhow, he offered it to me when I told him I was going this next week to rescue the Republic in Washington, D.C. And I felt what could be more appropriate than to wear this, because it is about the entire nation and the Republic. And so anyhow, he loaned it to me to wear in good faith at Rescue the Republic. So if anybody sees me there in this, you'll know who it is.
Well, everything is kind of very strange and upside down. So I want to actually update our folks, the folks at home, so to speak, about the independent national convention that you just attended in Denver, Colorado. We both were there last year, and we were both impressed with young people who are looking to work above and beyond the divide. However, now, does it seem that the independent movement has shifted toward the Trump camp? Is that seem to be what's happening? Tell me more about what happened at this convention and how things are playing out for the next 4 or 5 weeks.
Well, the independent national movement, which had its conference in Denver, is really beginning to solidify on a strategy of how do we truly bring the independent movement into national prominence, and more importantly than just prominence is to have a major impact on being able to break through the control of these now uniparty control of our political system, the duopoly. And it's really wonderful. I mean, there were incredible people there. There was, I'm guessing, 400 plus people in total there, leaders from all kinds of segments. But to your specifics of the point about have they moved to Trump, I wouldn't put it that way. How I would say it is Trump has moved into the independent movement because the forces that took down Bobby Kennedy and have taken down all the independent efforts for many years, and ever since Ross Perot, they learned many lessons of which they then went about state by state and federally, making all of the requirements significantly more, almost in every case, tripling the requirements for any independent candidates or parties to come into existence, as those two parties have worked to close every window they thought possible to gain and keep control of the entire system. And what we've seen with the nomination of Harris is that Uniparty's face, they are so bold and that they have now publicly come out and unified behind the Harris camp against Trump. When you see these neocons, the Dick Cheneys of the world, and the military industrial complex, security state, et cetera, these people all lined up now behind the Harris candidacy, the Uniparty has clearly shown itself. And Trump, who was a lifetime Democrat, who moved over to the Republican Party to seek the nomination, which he got obviously in 2016. But from the day he came down that escalator, those forces tried to take him down because he was not then, nor is he now, a part of the establishment, the old guard, the GOP, the grand old party, and all of those people on the right who have had control of this country from their perspective. He's never been a part of that group. They've tried to take him down. After he got elected, they did everything possible to stop him, stabbed him in the back. He surrounded himself with people he thought he could trust because he was very naive to the depths of what we're talking about. So he surrounded himself with a bunch of neocons and people like Bolton and others that then continued their journey on that path. And so we think, and I have to say think, because until your actions have proven it, words are meaningless. But with his recent actions of bringing on Bobby Kennedy on board, Tulsi Gabbard, Russell Brand, on and on, Elon Musk, and the list goes on of people that were all former Democrats who now have left the Democratic Party over the last number of years and moved into, quote, the Republican camp. It is not the grand old party that we've known, the GOP that it's known for. Brett Weinstein said it really well in a podcast that I'm going to want to make sure we have linked up here that he just did with Bobby Kennedy on his podcast. No, it's the GNP, the grand new party, truly a party that the Democratic principles have migrated over to the new people running the new GNP, and with the alliance of Bobby and Tulsi, et cetera. We think that Trump truly has learned from what had happened, the mistakes he made before. I personally think that the deaths of so many thousands of people in our senior citizen communities, like my mom, who was in one that almost passed, who was in a coma, because he did not allow the release of those 33 million doses of hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin that were in government-controlled warehouses that he rolled over to the pharmaceutical industry for the vaccine savior. I think that those kind of lessons that he's learned deeply have touched him. Then when he took that attempted assassination bullet, the combination of all of these were why Bobby Kennedy, in numerous face-to-face conversations with him after that shot, convinced him and others close in his family and circle to step down from his campaign. To me, and I don't mean to go off on a rant on this, but it's really important. What Bobby did exemplifies the depth of his character and commitment to this country. He's known all along that his life has been on the line, and he's been willing to risk his life for saving our children, for saving our country. And it wasn't about his ego. He realized that if we stayed in the race, all of the internal polling we were doing showed in those swing states, we were taking a significant number of votes away from Trump. And if we stayed in the race, which we now realize we couldn't win because of all the censorship against him. And for people who aren't aware, and Bobby's talked about this openly, Ross Perot in 10 months had 34 interviews on mainstream media, plus a big infomercial, but 34 interviews in 10 months. Bobby got 2 interviews on recorded shows in 16 months. That's the kind of censorship that most of our Democratic friends have never even been made aware of, that kind. So Bobby, when we realized we couldn't win, he was willing to say, it's not about me. It never was about him. He stepped down and said, I will put all of my energy and resources and ask all of my volunteers to help elect Trump so that we can stand up against this uniparty and truly elect someone who will help change the course of this nation with the people like Bobby, et cetera, on his cabinet. So it's not a movement to support Trump. We're not voting for Trump per se. We're voting to end censorship. We're voting to end this forever wars. We're voting to clean up our government and truly drain the swamp, et cetera, et cetera. I could go on at infinitum about the things we're voting for. And it's not Trump personally yet. Hopefully, in a couple of years, we'll be able to say, wow, thank you, Bobby, because it was only because of our trust in you and people who trust Tulsi and others that you were willing to align behind Trump that we did. And Trump will prove out with his actions that he truly is a man that will leave a legacy of helping heal our country, bring a unity government into reality for the first time since Lincoln, that we'll be proud of. So.
Thanks, Michael. This has been quite a journey here. Again, everything is upside down. Everything is different than it was. When Bobby made this announcement that he was, supporting Trump, for me as a lifelong progressive, and I'm from New York, so I have a certain view of Donald Trump and his personality. Jonah Goldman said this many years ago when Trump was running the first time. He said, "Character is destiny." Indicating that, if you can look at the man's track record, you get to see what kind of person he is or isn't. So it's been quite a journey for me. And so when Bobby made his choice, I went, well, I totally understand why he did that. But for me, that's a bridge too far to actually support Donald Trump. So I watched the rally where Bobby was being introduced to the MAGA folks, a lot of people out there in the audience. And when Bobby made his pitch, when he talked about make America healthy again, when he talked about ending forever wars, censorship, growing real food instead of Frankenfood, the response he got was, in fact, he got a greater ovation than Trump did. And I realized that Bobby was speaking directly to the people. And one of my objections to Trump over this past period of time is that he's not accountable. He's his own person. He's going to be totally arbitrary in how he makes his decisions. And as I watched the rally and the promises that Bobby made that the MAGA people cheered loudly for, and then as I've watched other events with Bobby and Tulsi Gabbard and so on, I recognize, and in fact, Bobby said this the other night, that Trump is now using these talking points. So he's shifted his campaign. As you had said, I think that's a great reframe, that rather than saying that Bobby and Tulsi have joined the Trump movement, that Trump has joined the independence movement. And that's where he has cast his future. So when I see that, I certainly see that in a way, Donald Trump being the personality type that he is, I think the one thing that he's really concerned about, that from his ego standpoint, is how is he going to be remembered? Is he going to be remembered? He wants to be remembered as somebody who saved the republic, somebody who made America great, and so on. And I think with this team of rivals and peers, he's never had peers before. Now all of a sudden he's got peers. He's got people who speak on behalf of his campaign, and who, if he doesn't toe the mark, they're not going to be silent. So in a certain regard, he has accountability, whereas Kamala has no accountability. Her accountability is to Dick Cheney. People say, well, can an endorsement actually change how people view a campaign and shift the energy? And for me, the endorsement by Dick Cheney is all that I need to know. That's what I need to know. There's that Uniparty. The neocons simply changed brands. Well, we tried to be Republicans. we betrayed those people, and so consequently in 2016, the neocon candidate Jeb Bush on the Republican side basically got 0 votes. So the
Let me
people on the
interrupt you.
right were hip to that. Go ahead.
Steve, let me just
Yeah.
interrupt for a second for
Yeah.
our audience, for people who are listening. Anybody can endorse anybody. You could have another Hitler endorse a Kennedy or anybody. An endorsement doesn't mean shit. It's what you react to that endorsement and embrace that endorsement that tells you if that endorsement has meaning. And that's the thing that we saw when Cheney and these others, the Bush camp and the other neocons and these military people and the security people, all lining up there. She's embraced it. Yay, yay. That tells us it's not, like I said, anybody can endorse anybody, but it's if you accept that endorsement and it's meaningful to you, as that's an indicator of how you're going to want to govern. So people recognize that because we've had the infiltrators in Bobby's campaign and others who will come in, get inside, and then go and say all kinds of ugly lies and shit to help stop somebody. So Cheney's endorsement alone was nothing, but when the way she embraced it is what was the telling thing that this Uniparty. And one other thing about Harris, she on tape right after the Democratic convention in an interview on CNN was calling out Elon Musk about how he should be leery. I forget the exact words, so I'm going to obviously misquote and paraphrase, but she basically called out Elon and warned him that this privilege of free speech could go away and that we need government accountability on what's being said there. And so I want to come back to this issue of censorship to give our audience a simple understanding for those about what kind of censorship is going on. So I know I interrupted you, Steve.
No, it's okay. I would like for you to say, I want you to say that because I'll come back to what I'm remembering what I need to say, but you come,
Right.
I think that's an important point right now.
Censorship. People say, "Oh, what? There's no censorship, etc." I said, "Let me give you just two simple analogies of what's going on right now." The founder of Telegraph, which is one of the remaining truly encrypted free speech platforms available to the people, like Elon Musk and X, which was taken out of Brazil and other countries. He's being threatened in the EU with allowing backdoor encryption access. The other free speech like Rumble and a couple of other free speech platforms. Now they're going after the founders and the leaders of those, saying that you have a complicity to crimes that are being conducted through the use of your platform. We, the government, demands access to your platform to help prevent these atrocious crimes. Now, on the surface, people say, yeah, we need to control that. But the essence of free speech and our First Amendment to protect our country and all of us is free speech is first and foremost there for the speech we don't want to listen to, the speech that's difficult to listen to, because free speech is the only way to bring a disinfectant to these kind of lies over time. And so you have to have total free speech to protect even the worst speech. But what's going on with this jailing in Paris of the founder of Telegraph, when he landed to refuel his jet, and they said it because he was complicit in allowing the platform to be used for all these terrible deeds. Well, that would be like somebody saying, okay, we're going to jail the president and chairman of the board of AT&T because they're complicit in allowing the use of the telephone for all kinds of bad deeds. And we know since the invention of the telephone, that has been a mechanism for crime. But did we ever think that it would be appropriate to go in and fine them 6% of their revenues and jail their leadership for allowing people to go in and use the telephone for that? Well, that's exactly what they're doing. And what they're saying is to Elon Musk and them is, we've got to have access. It's just like I tell people, would you be comfortable if our government sent in some military or police or your local police, and they were able to kick in your front door without a search warrant? No. People would say no to both of those. No. And that's exactly what our government, under the guise of protecting our freedoms, is using to try to get in there. So censorship is a huge issue. And if they get into those encrypted backdoors, we, the people, will have no way to communicate against the control of our government. And that's exactly what our founding of our nation was based upon, was the fact that we were upset with the way we were being governed. So censorship is a huge issue. You asked me about the INC, and I got off a little bit. Out of INC, which was a great event, there's now a focused effort on how we can elect people throughout the country to create a block of members in 2026 that can have a coalition of independent candidates from a number of parties. They might come from the Forward Party, the Alliance Party. In California, they might come from the American Independent Party, the Reform Party in Florida. There's at least 6 or 8 fairly significant independent parties that are now openly working as a coalition that will help focus our efforts after this election in November on targeting members of the House of Representatives, as many as we think we have a legitimate opportunity to take down a Democrat or Republican incumbent, and the resources necessary. So the more resources we can get into the independent movement, which is where people who want to help us, we need those resources. We need those people of wealth to put their money into the independent movement so that we can elect more and more people, but we can elect a block of members of the House of Representatives in 2026 that will act and work together as a true independent coalition, not like Bernie Sanders and Angus King and others who say they're independent and caucus with the Democrats and vote in every situation like a Democrat, despite what they say about being independent. They're truly not. As much as I like Bernie Sanders, he's not an independent. He's a Democrat underneath. And same with Angus King. But we'll have a block then so that neither the Democrats or Republicans can have a majority in the House. We will be able to then act as a coalition to force both of them to work with us and through us for passing legislation. We'll be able to bring a light into the back corridors. I think you said into the hidden corridors there, and shine a light on what's really going on. And they won't be able to sit there and say, it was their fault. We didn't vote for that bill because of all the shit they put into it. And the other can't say, well, they wouldn't pass this great sounding bill that was going to save the world or create the perfect border situation. They can't sit there and just blame it on the other. There'll be a block of truly independent people who say, no, this is how it came down, and will help ensure that we have representatives truly of the people, not of the leadership of a party or the moneyed interest behind them. So we're focusing our effort. Everybody's agreed to this on various levels. And so this independent movement, led by the Independent National Coalition, is really beginning to focus and has a real game plan of how we can make an amazing impact in 2026 and sooner, because soon as they see us in this fashion, a lot of those good Democrats and Republicans who are going to be elected in November will not have to take a knee to the leadership or the money when they know that they could get reelected running with a independent party in their state. Like in California, somebody can stand up to the leadership of the Democrats and the money and know that they would have a path to get reelected as a member of the American Independent Party and have all the same campaign finance laws, have truly an organization behind them, membership behind them, all of the things they need to get reelected by doing the right thing. And so that's one of the most important things, is this consolidation of effort, focusing of effort, and we see a path forward to breaking through the duopoly and then implementing the policies that under Trump's leadership with Bobby and Tulsi and the others will be able to make. So we're excited about where we are, and how we can really begin to make a significant change in the way our country's political system is operating.
I really appreciate the 2026 strategy because, again, it's not about one person running. It's about a true campaign of the people who are waking up above and beyond the divide. And my joke is we need to awaken beyond woke, and that you start to notice the panoply of progressives who've switched sides. Tulsi being obvious, but then also people like Glenn Greenwald and Matt Taibbi and Naomi Wolf and Jimmy Dore and Russell Brand and all of these people who've gotten hell because from their side. And I think we're starting to see the power of cognitive dissonance. This past weekend, I was part of this international worldwide peace event with billions of people literally having access to this broadcast from San Francisco, which is where the United Nations, which was initially a great idea, was the idea for UN was born in San Francisco. And so there I'm wandering around the event, and there's, my friends from Code Pink, this is a peace organization. And my conversation with the woman who's a longtime peace activist, and I said, you know what, you're on the wrong side. In partnering with the Democrats, you're still imagining it's the Vietnam War era where they were anti-war, or if it was, or during the Bush-Cheney era when they were anti-war, and simply the neocons have become the neo-libs. And as the Swami would tell us, Kamala might be a Wolfowitz in Sheepowitz's clothing, right?
Wait, say that again a little slower.
A Wolfowitz in Sheepowitz's clothing. Wolfowitz is being, Paul Wolfowitz, one of the key architects of Project for a New American Century, the We Need a New Pearl Harbor, 1997-98 plan to implement. And if anybody thinks that that our foreign policy right now is that we're doing the right thing, and what we're doing, it's simply a continuation of Bush and Cheney. We'll send a link to a wonderful interview, a wonderful presentation by Tulsi Gabbard and Bobby Kennedy. And Tulsi, who has been in the military, she still is, who has a grasp of what it means to send people to fight and die. And that war is a last resort, not a first resort. And the people who haven't been to war are the ones who are most eager to send other people there. And the compassion on the Democratic side, I think, has been abused. It's been betrayed, like the valor was betrayed on the Republican side when we went to war in Iraq because of the weapons of mass distraction, I think they're called. So at this point, there's cognitive dissonance that's happening.
I should say that's the updated version instead of weapons of mass destruction, which we learned was another big neocon uniparty lie to justify another war.
Yeah. Now that uniparty, by the way, Hillary voted for the Iraq War. Joe Biden voted for the Iraq War. So this has simply been the same uniparty establishment, and I'm very clear that well, none of these people want Donald Trump elected. It's not necessarily because he's such an awful person. After all, Dick Cheney. If I'm going to do a judge of character, I'm going to follow what Dick Cheney says, right? So it's not that it's a judge of character, it's that Trump is the wild card who endangers the establishment right now. And unfortunately, those people who want to have peace, all of those people out there in San Francisco and many places around the country who are working for peace and so on, and who have habitually voted for the Democratic Party, are now, we want to put them in cognitive dissonance right now. We want to actually remind them of what the party of war is. And, here you are, you're at a peace rally. If you watch anything, any of these rallies with Kennedy and Tulsi and so on, you see that these are the people who don't want war. They understand the price of war. They understand that the military-industrial complex has bled us dry, and we don't benefit from that money. It's, you know, they're much more make the American empire great again, as opposed to make America great again. I'm really starting to sense those distinctions. So I may be saying something that's very unpopular to a lot of my friends, and I'm sorry, but I think it's really time to examine what the reality is here and what side those people are on, no matter what they're saying. There's a difference between virtue and virtue signaling. And what we're seeing is a lot of fancy dancing. There's no democracy in the Democratic Party. There were no debates. They simply, you know, when it was clear that Joe Biden was a dead man walking, they pulled him out and they put somebody else in who does not do independent, off-the-cuff interviews and so on, who is basically looking to run out the clock and hope that, you know, people don't really begin to ask, well, who is she accountable to? Who exactly is she accountable to? Is she a Wolfowitz in Sheepowitz's clothing? Is she a cover for the neo-libs and neo-cons? And what is it that she's really promising the American people, other than more censorship, more wars, and more favoring of the, in the guise of working for climate change, essentially top-down impositions. You know, the climate change people, I mean, the Democratic Party, they're not talking about restoring the soil, God forbid. They're in bed with Monsanto. So that's the paradox. And I think that the tool that we have right now is cognitive dissonance, to see if enough people are really willing to recognize that their loyalty to the Democratic Party has been betrayed many, many, many times. And we're better off with the wild card than with the known quantity that is going to essentially remove our ability to speak freely and call anything that contradicts the mainstream narrative hate speech.
You know, they coined that term, mal speech, that they use
malinformation.
They use that as, and have been using that as censorship. And again, this issue of censorship is, to me, is the most singularly important issue, because if we can't talk and debate openly different perspectives, hear that speech that we don't like, but if we're not strong enough in our character, then our position is not correct, then let the debate begin and let the right answer filter to the top. But you can't, who's going to be the arbiter of what is right and wrong? When I meet these people who still say, I can't possibly vote for Trump because he's going to tear down this, he's going to do all this stuff that they've been led to believe, I like to start with them and say, what do you think is going to be different? And start with questions, because we know what'll happen if we elect Harris and they keep control of the White House. It will be a continuation of all of the policies that have gotten us to where we are, whether it be on the issue of war, censorship, the health of our people, the health of our country. No matter what their words are, I say, people, you can't judge anybody by their words alone. It must be paramount. What have they done? What are their actions? And then they'll list off things that Trump has done in the past. And I'll say, you're right. That's why it's trust and verify at every minute, every step of the way. But people do change. History has shown us that some of the most horrific people in history have become some of the greatest leaders in history and have changed because of circumstances and experiences that they go through and being tested. And only thing we can hope for and trust in is that because he's a different person that was able to convince all of these former Democrats and people like Bobby to trust him, we have to, in my opinion, have that same trust in our leaders that we trust, to say, okay, if you trust in Bobby, I'm gonna trust you enough to do that, because I know for sure if I continue to vote for Harris, I am voting for those same policies, despite all the things they're now saying again. But every election cycle, they tell us everything we dream about. But what have they done when they've controlled both houses of Congress and the presidency? What did they do? Do we have that great single party, single payer healthcare system they've talked about for so many years? What did they do about abortion? Did they codify Roe v. Wade? Have they done any of this stuff to any satisfactory degree on any issue that they've told us they were going to solve when they've had the opportunity? No, and neither did the Republicans, old guard. But this is not the old Republican Party. This is a new party one, and it's become a new moniker for independent unity government. Somebody willing to bring in people who think differently, have different experiences, and say, let's work together. Every presidential election, we've heard this, I'm going to be the president of unification. And as soon as they get elected, they represent that other party and they talk a good game. And what do? They line up all of their cronies and continue with the policies that their party's been doing, and with total disregard for the other side. This independent movement. Go ahead.
Well, the trust and verify thing is really interesting, because one of the interviews I saw the other day, somebody asked Bobby, well, how do you know? I mean, Trump is his reputation as a serial liar. How do you know he's going to keep his word? He's a con man, right? How is he going to keep it? And Bobby says he's already keeping his word, because in all of his speeches and rallies, he brings up all of these independent issues. He brings up censorship. He brings up Make America Healthy Again. He brings up the Forever Wars. He brings up the military-industrial complex and all of these things. So he is already committing to those things to his constituency. And let's be real here. I don't know, maybe there are people who would follow Trump blindly if he walked everybody over the cliff. But the independent movement is not going to be that way. The independent movement is holding him accountable. And if he doesn't step up, Tulsi and Bobby are not going to be quiet. So I think that when I saw him addressing the MAGA people, when I saw Bobby addressing them, he was speaking directly to them. He was speaking about the 2028 election that's coming up. He was speaking about the future. And it's really interesting that if somebody wanted to break the entire Uniparty game, they would bring progressives and populists together. And that would be that's the magic formula. And the divide and conquer Uniparty uses these culture war issues to keep those two sides from going, wait a minute, I think we're being hoodwinked by this whole gang of hoods, winking hoods, right? And so that's the great uprising, where people really wake up and go, wait a minute, we don't really need these two parties. They're basically partying on our dime. We haven't been invited to the party. And so now there's an opportunity. So whereas even a few weeks ago, I would have said, I cannot pull the lever for Donald Trump. I just can't. I'm sorry. And at this point, I'm really recognizing that in this existential issue, now there are existential issues that Democrat voters are concerned about. They're concerned about the women's right to choose. They're concerned about how are you going to deport all of these illegals and all of that, a crazy idea in a certain regard. What about those Christian nationalists who want to make homosexuality illegal? Now, my sense is that Trump is way too much of a pragmatist to allow those ideological considerations to dominate his presidency, as long as he knows that there is this big independent base. 50%, 51% of the body politic in this country now identifies as independent. They don't have a home with the Democratic Party anymore, and they wouldn't have a home with the Republican Party of the Liz Cheneys and the Mitt Romneys and all of those people. But all of a sudden, there's daylight. There's some possibility that would forestall the the totalitarianism, the soft cloth totalitarianism that we've been living under already. Fascism is the blending of the coercion of the state and the power of the financial power of corporations. We already have that. So we have fascism. And in the past, the way that we've been divided is that the progressive voters point to the corporations and go, those are the villains. The conservative voters point to the government and go, the government's the villain. And I think as the independent movement is now coming to realize that when you have an unchecked, unbalanced system where there's collaboration and secrecy that empowers this force that is both the government and corporations working together, that is the de facto fascism that we already have. So Donald Trump is not going to bring fascism.
No, and a couple things you said I want to touch base for, again, for our audience's benefit. This issue of abortion. Kennedy's made it really, really clear with a beautiful position paper on the website Kennedy24.com that I know Trump's embraced, and it's titled "More Life, More Choice." We believe in choice, but we believe in more life, and it is up to the individual, not up to the state to dictate it, but more choice, more life, more choice, whichever way you want to take it. But that's the position that on that. But again, from my perspective, it's an individual thing that the state should stay out of it, but we should focus on providing more opportunities for life at the same token. The system is the thing that we're trying to focus on with the independent movement, is how do we fix the system? I personally can live with almost any, well, I will live with any decision that would come out of a system that was functioning with a level of integrity of service to the people. Because allow a good debate, to allow the process, the ingenious process of our system, if it was functioning to work, I could live and will live with anything. But our government system has been ossified. All of the incredible, ingenious systems that were put in place by our founding fathers and framers, almost all of them have been ossified, taken. And for those who don't know the word ossified, it means that they no longer function. They're calcified and they don't work. We need to get the system working again. And it was designed to be evolved. Our founding fathers and framers knew that the level of consciousness of the people would forever, hopefully, keep growing and expanding. And at the same token, they could not even envision what kind of frontier challenges we would face over time. That's why they designed a system that would be allowed to evolve with the changing level of consciousness and frontiers that our country would face. We have not been evolving that system. We have incredible knowledge now and access to information technology that could really modernize our government and make it truly more effective. We hope that AI can be the great liberator. As the Industrial Revolution lifted millions and millions, billions of people perhaps out of poverty, the AI revolution, if under the proper guidance of a government that had integrity to serve the people, AI could be the next major liberator for, again, perhaps billions of people, to move them to another higher level of freedom and independence. And I like when people talk about, to me, and I've been asked often, well, what does the word independent mean to you? And I said, well, it means freedom, but freedom to live. And this is, I love the way one of my heroes said it, Nelson Mandela, where he said, freedom is to break free of one's own chains, but to live in a way that respects and enhances all others' freedom. And that, to me, is the essence of independence, is to live free for yourself, but live in a way that respects and enhances all others' freedoms. And that's what we can do. And we're seeing right now, and I know you know this term, but for the audience's benefit, they may not have heard it, called turnkey totalitarianism. And turnkey totalitarianism refers to this gentle, ongoing, soft process of slowly putting in place all of this technology and mechanisms and changing of the laws, changing of people's perceptions, allowing people to hand over their freedom for more convenience at every little step. But that key is in the door of totalitarianism, and they're turning it blatantly now with what they've done with the founder of Telegraph and with Elon Musk's threats and stuff. And folks, if that key turns and locks that door, the ability for us to regain our freedoms is unacceptable method. We are doing everything in the independent movement to make sure we have a responsible revolution to reform our republic. And to that point, one of the things that I mentioned at the very beginning, why I'm wearing this jacket, and was loaned to me by one of our great, wonderful volunteers, John Sinman, is that I'm going this Saturday, flying to Washington, D.C., to participate in what hopefully will be one of the most historical events, obviously in our lifetime and in the nation's history. And it's called Rescue the Republic. And it's in Washington, D.C. There's a big event on Saturday, a music kind of festival as people are arriving. But we hope to fill from Lincoln Memorial to Washington Monument, to fill those grounds with 1 million Americans there to rescue the republic. A very peaceful, anti-war demonstration rally, if you will, to rescue our republic. There's an incredible lineup of speakers already announced. Everybody from Dr. Brett Weinstein, Robert Kennedy Jr., Dr. Jordan Peterson, Russell Brand, Tulsi Gabbard, Matt Taibbi, one of my personal heroes in the journalism world. People like Charlie Kirk, Eric Bolling, Del Bigtree. Del Bigtree is a great speaker and great film producer. And the list goes on and on and on. I encourage people to go to jointheresistance.org. Jointheresistance.org, and we'll link this at the bottom, and come out. We've got people I know of, a whole host of the people at the independent conference. We're all talking about and are on their way there. Team Kennedy throughout the country, people like from California and all around are figuring out ways to get there and stay when they're there, to have an incredible, peaceful, anti-war rally to help rescue the republic and bring the level of awareness to what's going on in our country so that we truly can unify our country, stop these wars, and begin to truly help us turn the corner so we can accomplish that adjacent possible first step, which is to puncture the control of our two-party system, make it truly responsive to the people, and help us begin to take a major step towards that more beautiful and just world that our hearts know is possible, that Charles Eisenstein so eloquently has made visible to us. And so that's kind of, from my perspective, where I'd kind of like to end this conversation before we go too far. Steve, what would you like to add and before we close this conversation?
Well, I really appreciate, a really very powerful reframe is that, Trump has joined the independent movement. He's allowed himself to put it. If he's put himself in front of a parade, that's the parade to put himself in front of. And for us all to recognize, no matter how we've been affiliated until now, that the Uniparty is represented by Kamala and Cheney. And it's time for us to shift the Cheney of command over to we the people. And this is the first key step. It's not going to be, again, it's not like there's some great liberation that's going to take place. But this is the next, as you would say, adjacent possibility to forestall this soft cloth turnkey totalitarianism that most people, like the proverbial frog in the boiling water, as the heat comes up, they don't recognize they're being boiled alive. And I'm inviting my progressive friends to really face, we're being boiled alive, and it's time for us to stop complying with what we know in our hearts is insane. So that's my pitch. I wish I could be there in Washington, D.C. this weekend. I've already committed somewhere else, and I guess I didn't pay enough attention in bilocation class to allow me to be in two places at once. But my heart will be there, and I think that this is the beginning of a great awakening, a great uprising of the American people to wake up, wise up, grow up, and in this case, show up on a new playing field, ready to play a new game, which, as you said, Michael, earlier, that quoting Nelson Mandela, that in guaranteeing our individual freedom, we are guaranteeing that freedom for everyone else.
So we'll end it there. There's so much more that could be said. We'll put in a number of great links to some of my most meaningful podcasts that I would recommend for anybody to watch, on everything from sleepwalking into World War III and some others to help people. But again, if you're watching on YouTube or listening to our audio podcast, please subscribe, please like, and of course, please share with your friends and followers. And if you would consider becoming a supporter, so Steve and I can continue our work, we greatly appreciate it. You can do so by going to frontandcenter.us or go search us on Rumble. There you can become a supporter. Steve and I would be very appreciative and grateful for any support you can give. But either way, from political battlefields to cooperative playing fields, it's a long journey to the more beautiful and just world our hearts know is possible. Let's go there together. Thank you so much.